Welcome back to another episode of the Normalized Money Show. Julie, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm excited to talk today.
I'm really excited about this subject. We are on episode number 5 of these short lessons around money. And if you are tuning in today, we would love it if you drop a comment, and maybe in future we'll start going live. Today we're going to talk about, is it okay to talk about money? Julie, what do you say?
Well, of course we should talk about money. It's always something that is surrounding our lives, and it impacts the way that we think, and it impacts the way that we feel. So yeah, I definitely think we should talk about money.
And how was it when you were growing up? Did your parents talk to you about money?
My parents didn't really talk about me specifically. You know, in the sense that, like, you can have this or you can't have this, or save for this, save for that. I think it was more of, we kept the conversation open about what everybody was, spending their money on, and what they were choosing, and how you would achieve something if you wanted to buy something or make a big purchase, or just do the things that you enjoyed, but at the same time we were able to make, financially smart decisions because we talked about it before we did it, if that makes sense.
And do you feel like then the conversation was open with your parents about all topics?
No. I think that, my mom was basically the financial guru in my house, I think. And her way of, I think, letting everybody, she came from the banking industry, much like you. And I think that she documented things. I recently found some ledgers and things of hers that we would go on a trip, like a vacation, camping, and she would keep track of everything, and she would have, like, a good idea of what we were spending doing what. And so that was kind of, where I say that, we kind of discussed, like, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do, and how we could achieve that.
So, what I'm hearing you say is that there was somebody in your family who had some experience in banking, and she liked to write things down and talk about them before the money was spent.
Yes.
Okay, so that is why we have these short lessons. Now, in my family, I don't remember hearing anything about money except for I don't have any, like from my parents, right? I mean, if they did have money, they didn't want us to know that they had money.
So let
So
me ask you this while we're on this topic. I understand why people do that, because it's almost like you're trying to protect, right? You're trying to protect the fact that you don't have anything, so you don't want them to know. Because I know from dealing with, obviously the people that I have dealt with in different stages of their lives, that they don't have anything, and if their parents tell them you can't have that because we don't have anything, how did that make you feel, like, emotionally? Like, how do you feel emotionally around money then? Because that, I think, made a big difference for me. Like, my emotions when I talk about money are not the same emotions that you feel about money.
it's an interesting question that you pose. In the moment, I felt like that was terrible that we didn't have any money. I can remember standing in the bread line on Wednesdays to get bread, and the food was old. And it felt like we didn't have money a lot of the time. And so I don't think that necessarily had to be told to me. If I could come up on 50 cents to go and get an ice cream, that was really exciting. Just like if I could come up on change. So my relationship with money, what it just is what it is when I was younger. However, what I took away from that was that I'm going to have money. I will figure out a way to make money so that way my children don't have to have those same experiences, which were not happy experiences. Now, I will tell you, though, that some of my family is affluent and they have a good amount of money. And I had friends also who came from families that were wealthy, and I could see what their parents were doing. And I listened very intently to everyone who was different. And that, I think, was very, influential in where I am today.
So it's almost like you're kind of the rich dad, poor dad situation where you didn't have some of the stuff that you kind of wanted, not that everything that we want we should have, but that your emotions were kind of forcing you to feel more of the way of, I need to figure this out, instead of feeling like this sucks, I hate this. You turned the opposite direction. You felt like if you had somebody to talk to about money, it wasn't going to be the people that didn't have any, it was going to be with the people that had it and how they got it.
Absolutely. And I think the takeaway for the students who are listening to our class today needs to be around, are you allowed to discuss money, and who can you discuss money with? Because some people absolutely do not want to discuss money for one reason or another, whether it's that they're broke or that they're rich. They just don't want to have the conversations. And then there are other people who, especially I find in the banking industry, or even if they're kind of a mover and a shaker in business, they're very blunt when it comes to money, and they will happily discuss money because they treat it like a tool. And so it's not emotional to them, which is where I now am. I don't treat it emotionally. It's just something that gets moved around.
But I guess my point was to bring home kind of what you were saying. You do want to discuss money with people, but you want to be careful who you discuss the money issue with. Is that a lot of times when we're young and we're constantly told no, or we're constantly in a state of like, why me, or what's going on? How come my friend gets it, but I can't have it? Is that you do attach emotion to money, and that if you realize you've got this attachment, you feel a certain way every time you talk about money, there are things that we can, suggest to help you change that feeling, or change that thought process so that you're not thinking the same about money anymore.
I would suggest that if somebody doesn't want to talk about money with you, you never, ever, ever bring it up again. Because the people who want to talk about it, they will lift you up in ways that other people who are uncomfortable talking about it will bring you down. And I say that in a way that it's just people are so guarded about the conversation, and I don't think you're going to ever breach that guard. And so, when you have, or if you're one of those people who has a whole bunch of ideas, or even if you just want to get a new job or change your neighborhood, a lot of people don't want that for you unless they want that for themselves. And so you just can't talk to those people about money, versus if you talk to people who live outside the neighborhood. Does this make sense? You have to pick who you talk to about it.
Well, it does make sense, because and I would put this in the same category as growth, right? It's like an exchange. You have to exchange things, and money is an exchange, right? And when you exchange something that maybe you're comfortable with, you're in a comfort zone, and you've got to exchange, you're going to be uncomfortable. And I think that in your situation, you came from a background where it was very uncomfortable on a daily basis, and not just, we're talking about emotions with money, but we're talking about like just education too, right? Like, you weren't taught some of the things I was taught, because my mother came from the banking industry, and she had those basic tools and knew how to keep track of things, and had an idea of, okay, if we're heading in this direction, we know that how to get there and how to get back, because we're going to make a plan. And I think that talking and having the ability to work that out and bounce ideas off of people is instrumental in being successful. And I think if you can't talk to people about that you do need to find somebody else that, is kind of maybe out of your comfort zone. And like you said, you picked people that you knew were successful in that topic, and you went to them and mirrored what they were doing, or you listened to what they had to say, and you instilled those thoughts into your head, as opposed to putting negative things in your head and feeling that dread and depression from it.
Definitely. And that is why we have this show. So on that note, please, everyone, keep tuning in. Next week, we're going to talk more about life goals and starting from the age of 80 and working that backwards and the money around that. So Julie and I are willing to talk money with you. If you're listening and you have no one in your crew who likes to talk about money and upward mobility, we're all about it. If you found any value in this video today, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next week.
Make it a great week, everyone.